Welcome to This Explainer. Money laundering is essentially the process of hiding cash earned from crimes and making it look perfectly legal through placement, layering, and integration. But how do governments actually stop this? Well, in India, the ultimate weapon is the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, or the PMLA. Today, we're unpacking the absolute bedrock of this law, the exact specific crimes that actually trigger it. For anyone in banking, compliance professionals, or even students trying to wrap their heads around financial law, understanding this is absolutely foundational. So let me ask you this. What actually triggers a money laundering charge? Because it's not just some vague suspicion that someone happens to have dirty money. A bank or an investigator can't just point at an unusual transaction and instantly declare it money laundering in a legal vacuum, right? There has to be an original crime that generated that illicit cash in the first place. But does any crime count? Like, does stealing a candy bar trigger federal money laundering investigations? To truly understand how the financial system is protected, we have to know exactly what acts legally start the clock. And that brings us to the core concept for today, scheduled offenses. Think of these as the specific underlying criminal acts whose illicit proceeds legally trigger money laundering charges under the PMLA. The government has meticulously categorized these crimes into three structural divisions: Part A, Part B, and Part C. If a person commits one of the crimes listed in these schedules and then tries to take that dirty money and place it into the financial system to make it look clean, well, that is exactly when the PMLA slams down on them. And these aren't just theoretical concepts. Authorities like the Financial Intelligence Unit India, the Enforcement Directorate, and the Reserve Bank of India rely on these exact schedules to enforce the law every single day. I really want to emphasize that the lists we are about to explore are strict, legally binding frameworks. For financial institutions and banking professionals, non-compliance with monitoring for these specific triggers can be incredibly costly. Okay, let's dive right into this. We'll start by exploring the roots of money laundering, move through terror and drugs, tackle corporate fraud, smuggling, and some truly unexpected triggers, before we wrap the whole thing up with the inescapable legal net. Section 1. Roots of Money Laundering. Let's look closely at parts B and C to understand the foundation. So, the crucial point here is how highly targeted these sections are. Part B, for instance, is very specific. It focuses squarely on offenses under the Customs Act. We're talking about making false declarations or using forged documents. Meanwhile, Part C acts as a critical bridge for cross-border crimes. It covers property offenses like theft and extortion, and, crucially, the willful attempt to evade tax under the Black Money Act. If someone tries to hide undisclosed foreign income to evade taxes, the proceeds involved immediately trigger money laundering charges. Section 2. Terror, Violence, and Drugs. The severe triggers found in Part A. Now let's break down the absolute bedrock of expected money laundering triggers. Under the Indian Penal Code, triggers include extreme violent acts like murder and kidnapping for ransom. Then you have the NDPS Act, which completely covers the financing of illegal narcotics. And crucially, the UAPA strictly covers anti-terrorist acts, specifically raising funds for terror or holding the proceeds of terrorism. Think about it. Extreme crimes generate massive illicit wealth that inherently requires complex networks to clean. Running an illegal narcotics empire or financing a terrorist organization requires illicit financial backing and a quiet way to move that money. And this is exactly why tools like Know Your Customer, customer due diligence, and constant transaction monitoring are absolutely vital. Banking employees are literally the frontline shield protecting the financial system from these criminal networks. Section 3, Corruption and Corporate Fraud, entering the white-collar crime arena. And this brilliantly illustrates how the PMLA intersects directly with the corporate and cyber world. If a public servant takes bribes under the Prevention of Corruption Act, that money is immediately subject to laundering laws. The SEB Act triggers the PMLA for insider trading or illegal market manipulation. Even the digital realm is completely covered. Under the Information Technology Act, major digital privacy breaches and penalties for breaching Confidentiality Act act as PMLA triggers. Section 4. Smuggling, Arms, and Antiquities. The physical contraband side of things. Moving illicit physical goods is heavily monitored under this framework. This ranges from possessing or selling prohibited weapons under the Arms Act, all the way to smuggling ancient art treasures under the Antiquities Act. And the law also aggressively targets human exploitation. Procuring persons for prostitution under the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act is an immediate, strict triggering offense. The financial system is absolutely locked down against the profits generated by these dark physical markets. Section 5. The Unexpected PMLA Triggers, looking way beyond standard financial crime. Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast in what actually qualifies as a trigger. We all expect financial crimes like counterfeiting currency, extortion, cheating, or forgery to trigger money laundering laws. Nobody's surprised by those, right? But surprisingly, so do the Wildlife Protection Act, the Copyright Act, and the Environment Protection Act. Animal poaching, intellectual property theft, or environmental damage can literally trigger a massive money laundering investigation. Let's get specific, because this is honestly fascinating. Picking or uprooting protected plants, that's a scheduled offense. Knowingly using pirated computer software is actually on the list. And what about corporate pollution? Penalties for polluting a stream or illegally discharging environmental pollutants are direct PMLA triggers. If a corporation commits one of these acts and attempts to layer or hide the financial benefits, compliance officers have full legal authority to flag it as money laundering.
Section 6. The unescapable legal net. The ultimate catch-all.
Just look at paragraph 29 of the Scheduled Offenses, Section 447 of the Companies Act, punishment for fraud. Out of all of the complex, intricate laws we just explored, from antiquities to picking protected plants, this simple, incredibly broad classification of corporate fraud acts as a massive legal net. Any deceptive financial scheme within a corporate structure that generates illicit proceeds is captured right here. And that triggers the full weight of the PMLA, which, by the way, includes heavy penalties, frozen bank accounts, and severe imprisonment.
Which leaves us with a pretty critical question. With everything from terrorism to picking protected plants acting as a trigger, are your risk assessments truly looking wide enough? The avenues for illicit money are incredibly diverse. Understanding the PMLA is not just a legal requirement, it's a vital, everyday responsibility for every banking and compliance professional out there. Know your customer, detect suspicious activity, report it on time. Keep this massive scope in mind so we can continue protecting the financial system. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Stay compliant and stay vigilant.